Do you remember that video game commercial from a while back that caused quite a stir with its cinematic presentation and narrative building?
They are begging for drugs. They'll have their technology in your body. They could have the power to turn off your limbs.
No, that's not it. It had somber music and a lot of it was in slow motion.
I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world.
No, that's Gears of War. It was about this kid and their family, and it conveyed this wonderfully touching sense of loss. No, zombies. It was about zombies. There we go, the Dead Island trailer. For the uninitiated, it's a full 3-minute and 8-second ad documenting a family's last moments together. It highlights a couple's vain attempts to protect their family from hordes of undead outside, only to realize they've already lost the one thing they're fighting so hard to protect. It conveyed a real sense of loss and shattered dreams. This idyllic vacation was supposed to bring them all closer together and ultimately destroyed them despite their best efforts. In just 3 minutes, with some clever editing and an understated piano piece, you essentially had been sucked into the story they were trying to convey. And in the wake of Left 4 Dead turning the zombie genre into an action shooter and Dead Rising turning it into, whatever this is. This was a fresh take on what was, and still is, an increasingly stale trope. Most zombie games are driven by camp value and ironic callbacks to B-movies. Instead, this had an earnestness about it, a small story about futility and loss and hopelessness. The zombies were incidental. Instead, the focus was on a story about people. After seeing that trailer, I couldn't wait. Here was a game that was trying to engage me on an emotional level. A game that cared more about giving me meaningful choices than epic set pieces. A game that cared more about having something to say than giving me the most badass way to kill zombies. Roll the footage.
Drink blood like a vampire without warning. Who do you voodoo, bitch? Stand up. Sam B got the thing that go bump in the night. Whoa. Who do you voodoo, bitch? Hide your kids, grab your wife, better get out of sight. Who do you voodoo, bitch? Let's go. Sam B to Papa Shango, I'm bearing some maybe. Handful of fingertips.
Because nothing says touching story about the loss of one's family quite like acting like a drunken college sophomore on spring break. But it goes deeper than just that simple bait and switch. I mean, have you listened to the lyrics of this song?
Hide your kids, grab your wife, better get out of sight. Who do you voodoo, bitch?
You advertise your game with a story about a man losing his wife, child, and life, and then follow that up by opening up your game with an Antoine Dodgson reference?
I need to have your kids, have your wife, have your kids, have your wife, have your kids, have your wife, and have your husband, cause they bring everybody out here.
Ugh. And that's followed not 5 minutes later by the in-game reference to the commercial, with no broken window and no reference to the missing child. This is less like a reference to their ad campaign and more like an Easter egg thrown in for yucks, like the Lost Hatch in Just Cause 2. It doesn't add anything. People who get the reference will chuckle like when Family Guy makes a reference to something they're aware of, and people who don't get the reference will just see 2 dead bodies in a zombie game and keep moving. It's an empty, soulless gesture from an empty, soulless game. I mean, the closest they even try to come to approaching an emotional connection with the player is crap like this.
My wife. My dad. Oh, fuck, my own fucking brother. Jesus Christ. What else could I do? Let him kill me? Why are you looking at me like that? What the fuck do you want from me? I had no choice.
But the gravitas of something like that is sort of undercut when you have other characters walking around like this.
Everything is so fucked up. And these half-dead assholes, they're fucking annoying. I need more champagne. I fucking love champagne. Can you find some for me? I want to fucking drink till I fucking drop.
But I don't mean to pick on Techland and Deep Silver alone. As I've already indicated, plenty of other games have wildly misleading ads. And you know what? I can only blame the marketing guys so much for that. I don't want to start shilling for snake-eyed, slick-haired marketing hacks or anything, but the reality is that these are really good ads. They strike an emotional chord with their audience, they tell a short narrative that sticks with you after the commercial is over, and most importantly, they leave you wanting more. But the games don't offer more. What they offer is... Yeah, that. Look, the reality is that games are a different medium than film. I'm not asking that Dead Island provide a video game version of the commercial. We already have this awesome little vignette. I'm not saying we duplicate it verbatim. It's impractical and unnecessary. Just like it would be somewhat difficult to retell a movie through interpretive dance or write a novel based on a painting, literally translating the original work really wouldn't result in anything of value. Unless, of course, you think that retelling a 3-minute story across a 15-hour game gives you a tighter narrative. But just because they can't provide that exact same experience in video game form doesn't mean that they can't provide something that's thematically similar. They could have started the game with a small family where each character has a different skill, and losing one represents not only a thematic and narrative loss to the family, but a ludic loss as well. Allow players to shift between all characters in the family, so that when a skill is lost, the player actively feels crippled. They could force players to make decisions about who they'd be willing to sacrifice, or present them with situations where they could turn around and risk everything for that vital member of the family. They could have made a game where the story in the vignette was within the possibility space of the game, a dramatic reinterpretation of a single climactic playthrough. Players will remember that time they left little Billy to die just because they simply didn't have enough medkits way more than they'll ever remember any random scripted event in your 15-hour game. You can do this! You can make a game that's thematically consistent with your commercials and still be about shooting zombies in the head. Instead, we have, and I'm not even kidding, what are perhaps 4 of the most unlikable protagonists of any video game I've ever played, ever. You get racial stereotype number 1.
My daddy went to prison when I was 2. That's where he died. Mama didn't ever recover from there. Just drank and did crack.
Racial stereotype number 2.
He taught me martial arts. After finishing at the top of my university class, my father would not be proud of me. This work dishonors his memory.
Crazy vindictive cop chick.
One rich bugger I investigated was clearly molesting his 14-year-old daughter. So I fucking took his gun away and shot the bastard.
And a drunk frat boy guilty of vehicular manslaughter.
That asshole I was street racing hadn't sideswiped me, I never would have crashed. That poor girl'd still be alive. So I had a few drinks in me, so what the fuck? I drive drunk better than I do sober anyway.
That's nice. Advertise your game with the heartfelt death of a young girl, then feature a protagonist who doesn't even feel guilty about running one down in a drunken stupor! I mean, Christ, how far can you get from these commercials? In fact, out of all the games I've mentioned, Deus Ex comes closest to even bringing up the tone and subject matter that its advertisements purport, but even in that instance, the advertisements make a better case for transhumanism than the game ever did.
We will help you explore your talents in ways you've never dreamed possible.
So why is this? Why can we have commercials that are about things? And our games aren't really about anything. Well, that's a really complicated question that actually involves a lot of the business side of how games are made. In short, though, the commercial games industry just doesn't have enough respect for its own medium to tackle any issue, serious or not. Now, there's a whole slew of reasons why this is the way it is, from risk aversion due to development costs, to the need to placate a very specific 18 to 34-year-old straight white male demographic, to the continued and sorely misguided notion that games are just movies with button-pressy bits thrown in, to the sheer size of these projects and the number of people involved. Believe me, I'm no stranger to the realities of modern video game production, but I come to you as a critic, not as an apologist for developers, so I'm not going to let any of the things I just mentioned stand as excuses. Every other major type of media has to deal with the issue of money and bureaucracy, and even if they produce a mountain of shit each year, they still have at least something of value to contribute to the public discourse. Here's a thought experiment. Name 3 commercial games from this year that had more to say than Deus Ex's ad campaign. Now I'm talking commercial games at retail. I'm sure there are more than 3 amazingly insightful indie games this year. Go ahead, I'll wait. Time's up. Let's see how you did. Oh. Well, don't feel too bad. I couldn't do it either. I mean, unless you're being really generous to Homefront social commentary, or you think that Bulletstorm really was a great parody of modern shooters just because they said dick tits that one time.
Hey, dick tits! This game ain't gonna pre-order itself!
Ultimately, the reason game ads seem to say more than the products they promote is that advertisers know how to use their medium better than game designers know how to use theirs. Worse, they get paid to effectively use their medium, whereas game developers don't. Ads are all about bending every frame of film and every phoneme uttered in service to the almighty message, whether it's video games, beer, political campaigns, or ridiculously embarrassing exercise equipment. On the other hand, games are all about the system you're interacting with, and if they can append a message on after the fact, well then all the better. Artistic merit is seen by the industry as a bonus that enhances the end result, not a goal in and of itself. It's a skunkworks project handled by managers and creative directors early in the project, but not a driving force that informs mechanic design. The real shame is that it's not a problem with games as a medium, and it's not a problem with the people we have making games. There are plenty of hardworking, talented people in the industry pouring everything they have into the games they're making. The problem is that the system, as it stands, currently doesn't facilitate making games of any artistic merit. A game just needs to be fun and functional. As long as you can pass Microsoft certification or Sony certification, and as long as your game isn't a terribly atrocious game to look at, you're good to go. The modern game studio's priorities as a company are 1. Is the game stable and functional? 2. Does the game play okay? 3. Does the game look good? 4. Let's throw in a story or maybe some sort of meaning or artsiness, throw it in an intro, throw it in an outro, who the hell cares? There's no financial incentive for game studios to make games with meaning, but there's enormous financial incentive for marketing firms to make advertisements with meaning. As a result, mainstream games say next to nothing, and mainstream game ads actually say a fair bit. If nothing else, Dead Island proves that the games industry is currently content to give you a big, beautiful 15-hour Skinner box that says little and means nothing. Earlier this year, the United States Supreme Court granted video games First Amendment rights, and while that's totally awesome for a bunch of really risque indie titles, I have to wonder how much longer it's going to have to be before the video games industry as a whole decides to make use of it.